I'm your host Leem bin Mohammad Rafi, and here is my YouTube channel Zamir Universal. What is the planning for day after the brutality, this cruelty, this war criminal who has played havoc with Gaza, and it is continuing, and you're finding the mass graves now in both in central Gaza, in northern Gaza, and also in Rafah. Wherever these beasts and pigs go, you find that the human beings have no place to exist, and especially who are helpless, who have no arms, who are women and children. Now, to spare these war criminals will be the biggest sin this society could do in the 20th century.
Well, today's events are a stark reminder of how often America has experienced violence at its highest levels. Assassinations and assassination attempts, an ever-present part of America's political landscape.
The idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate.
It may not be appropriate, but it's far from unheard of. Political violence runs through American history like a seam. The Civil War that defined the nation, leading to the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln in 1865. Over the next 36 years, two more presidents, Garfield and McKinley, were shot and killed. And in 1963, perhaps the most famous assassination of them all.
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
American assassinations have not been limited to presidents. In the 5 years following Dallas, America saw the killing of Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and JFK's brother Robert Kennedy, then a presidential candidate. Deaths that fundamentally changed the trajectory of the United States.
From the 60s, they were unquestionably consequential. It's reasonable to think that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a charismatic, extraordinary anti-war candidate, and a legacy of the Kennedy family, could have easily beaten Richard Nixon.
And like today, there have also been numerous close calls, from two attempts on President Gerald Ford in '75 to William Hinckley shooting Ronald Reagan in '81.
It did a lot for his popularity at the time. He trounced Jimmy Carter in that 1980 election pretty soundly, and after that, it was rare that you'd see a president out in the wild, so to speak.
In an increasingly fractured America, political violence of all stripes seems to be on the rise, from the home invasion of former Speaker Nancy Pelosi to the Capitol riots of January 6.
And I think it has to be said, you know, it's terrible that Donald Trump was shot at. No political candidate should be the subject of violence. And at the same time, very carefully, I'd like to say that there has been an aura of violence in America in the last 6 or 8 years, and most of it has come from the Trump side in a very, very specific and unmistakable way.
This was so wild, watching this moment in history play out live on television this morning, and it's quite bizarre when you think there were only centimetres between what we saw there and a very different kind of history. I want to show you this incredible photo that was taken by a New York Times photographer on the ground. That circle, inside that, is actually the trajectory of one of the bullets fired at Donald Trump.
That's the thing that's
amazing.
amazing.
How close it was. If he had turned a couple of centimetres.
But that's why I cannot understand how where this man was outside of the security zone for the Secret Service. If somebody could shoot and get that close to a presidential candidate, surely that is within the zone that the Secret Service should be looking at, and there's no way that that man should have ever been able to get there.
Yeah, there's been so many interviews with eyewitnesses who say that they saw the man, they pointed to him, and they tried to alert, the Secret Service, who at the time weren't quick to move or didn't move at all. The interview with the redhead guy we saw in the package, that whole interview, it was done by the BBC, it was absolutely fascinating.
Terrifying, but also incredible moment for Trump.
It's a crazy situation, and the fact they got back up, I read that what was yelled when they were down before this moment, so they're down on the ground hiding, and apparently someone from Secret Service yelled out, "Shoot it down, move him. So they yelled that, shoot it down, move him, and so they went to move him. But he decided to stand up and face the crowd. He wasn't to know there wasn't other shooters there.
You can see the Secret Service trying to get him
him
down.
down.
Even in
His
the
head
car.
was above all. They're all
Yes.
risking their lives. He
Yes.
just put his head above them, like let's have one more shot. It's
And that
crazy.
photo
iconic.
will be something we'll be talking about for decades to come. Just instantly iconic.
And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened. Take a look at what happened.
We begin with shocking breaking news out of Pennsylvania. Former President Donald Trump was rushed off the stage after what officials are calling an assassination attempt. Law enforcement officials say the person who opened fire today was a 20-year-old man from Pennsylvania. They are now confirming he is dead. The Secret Service says former President Trump is safe. In a social media post, the former president said he was hit by a bullet in the upper part of his right ear. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Kirsten Holmes. At this hour, officials say a person attending that rally was also killed. 2 other people remain in critical condition right now. Tonight at 10, we have the latest on this developing situation from Pennsylvania. We'll hear from a security expert on what goes into rallies like this one. We'll also take a look at what people nationwide were saying on social media just moments after the shooting. CBS News' Lauren Linder is in Butler County, Pennsylvania tonight with the latest on this breaking news.
Take a look at what happened.
Secret Service agents rushed former President Donald Trump off stage after shots were fired, moments after he began speaking at a Saturday evening rally in Butler County, Pennsylvania. The Secret Service says a man attending the rally was killed. A doctor standing nearby tried to help him, performing CPR.
The guy had spun around, was jammed between the benches. He had a headshot here.
Trump raised his fist as he left the stage. On his Truth Social site, the former president said he was shot by a bullet that pierced the upper part of his right ear. I knew immediately that something was wrong and that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin, he wrote. Much bleeding took place, so I realized then what was happening.
I just hear these 4 shots and everybody's screaming drop, and you can see the blood like splatter on his face, and the Secret Service just barricades him.
The Secret Service says the gunman was outside the cordoned-off area of the rally, standing on an elevated structure, and that he was shot and killed by a member of the agency's counter-assault team. A large number of Secret Service agents is in Milwaukee right now ahead of the convention. They're trying to piece together what happened here in Butler. President Biden spoke a couple hours after the shooting.
There's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this.
This was Trump's last rally ahead of next week's Republican convention in Milwaukee. He was taken away in a motorcade and again held up his fist as he got into his SUV. Lauren Linder, CBS News, Butler County, Pennsylvania.
The Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas says the agency is working with the Biden and Trump campaigns to take every possible measure to keep them safe during campaign events. CBS 8's Alex Lai spoke with a security expert who shed some light on the challenges Secret Service agents face at political rallies.
Right now, there's more questions than answers regarding security at the event. There's talk of where the shooter could have been and if Secret Service failed in their duty. I spoke with a security expert to find out more.
You've got snipers on the roof, and you've got plainclothes people in the crowd. You've got layers and layers of security.
Sean Van Diver is the founder of the San Diego chapter of the Truman Security Project. He has years of experience in national level security. Van Diver says at typical high-profile events, there are layers of security.
You would see things like access controls, right? Even further out from the event, you would see roadblocks, and then Secret Service or law enforcement or private security managing those roadblocks, checking your access to get in. Are you supposed to be here for this event. You'd see people on lists. You'd see badges. You'd see checks for people that are going to get close to the president. All those people behind the president on the stage, President Trump would have been background checked.
He says at these types of rallies, a potential attacker would not even have to enter the event.
There's a perimeter, and there's buildings all around potentially. If this is in an urban environment, I don't know much about the environment that it was in, but there's any number of buildings or other adjacent venues that it could have been. This person could have been from anywhere.
While many believe today's shooting is a security failure, Van Diver thinks the Secret Service did their duty.
You can't stop every attempt at violence, every attempt at anything. And I would say that they succeeded today, right? The president is okay. The shooter's dead, and unfortunately, we've lost at least one attendee.
As far as security at future events, Van Diver thinks once they figure out what the failure was here, they'll make sure it doesn't happen again. I'm Alex Lai for CBS 8.
Thank you, Alex. Meanwhile, people across the country took to social media to react to today's violence. CBS 8's Esmeralda Perez has stayed up to date with the latest on X. She joins us in studio with reaction.
Reaction is echoing throughout the nation. I'll take you to X, where there's been nonstop posts as this whole situation unfolded. First, let's start off with former President Barack Obama saying in part, "There is absolutely no place for political violence in our democracy. Although we don't yet know what exactly happened, we should all be relieved that former President Trump wasn't seriously hurt." Let's take things over to Elon Musk, who took advantage of this moment to endorse Trump and wish him a rapid recovery. Now on to California Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs, who expressed, "I'm wishing President Trump and all those who were injured a speedy recovery. Those responsible for violence at President Trump's rally must be held accountable." And here locally, County Supervisor Nora Vargas made a post saying, "There is no place for gun violence in our country, yet our children and families continue to witness tragic events like today. I condemn the terrifying shooting at today's campaign rally, and violence should never be tolerated." City of San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria expressed thoughts and prayers to former President Trump and those impacted. He says in part, "Political violence is unacceptable. It doesn't matter what party you belong to or what you believe. It's wrong." San Diego mayoral candidate Larry Turner made a post that reads in part, "I am deeply shocked by the news of the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. This is a reprehensible act that has no place in our society regardless of political beliefs or affiliations." Of course, you can follow us on all digital platforms for the latest news at CBS 8. Reporting in studio, I'm Esmeralda Perez, CBS 8.
Thank you, Esmeralda. Stay with us on CBS 8 News as we continue to follow this breaking news. We'll hear thoughts from local leaders following the shooting and what this means for the Republican National Convention set to start on Monday.
यूनिवर्सल टेलीविजन को सब्सक्राइब करना ना भूलें। उसके बाद बेल बटन पे क्लिक करें और अपने कमेंट्स के सेक्शन में अपने कीमती जो ख्यालात का इजहार ज़रूर